what are, I guess, like a few things that you have done or will do, to ensure the protection of your woman,
Yeah.
or
The
that you feel
first,
like a
first
man should be doing? Excuse me.
right. I don't think anything she said was off, and I agree with the consensus of the room that that was just for some content. But the other thing I want people to really realize and understand is this. You asked me what I think it should be, and I think everybody got their own flavor of what it should be. We need to really make sure that we understand that, because the first thing that a relationship needs to have is an understanding, right? All those things she said were very specific to me, to her lifestyle, what they're doing and what's going on, like the pumping of the gas and all that stuff. Some of that stuff is regular, but then I've also seen relationships whereas, maybe there aren't kids involved, because she never mentioned marriage, right? We're talking relationships, not just marriage. So there may be a point where somebody's out of town. Nowadays, man, people are traveling like crazy for work and whatever they're doing. So those things that she was talking about, hey, don't mess up my world. I kind of get what she's saying. Like I said, like don't come mess up my world, because like I think all of us on this panel have a certain way of thinking, and we're saying, hey, you kind of want to do that anyway. Like you hear Hink talk, Hink could tell a joke here or there, but then when it get down to the nitty gritty, he doing things for his woman. He making sure his woman is straight. He making sure all those things that she needs is there. Paris just mentioned that her significant other does the same for her. Jay, I know you on the same thing too. So it's like this panel is on that. But I think what she was saying is that there are literally people out there that's like, yo, pump that gas. You know what I'm saying? Like you can do that. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like some of those things they wouldn't even do for her. Now, when comes down to what I would do, like a lot of those things I agree with, right? But the thing that I need to make sure of is, and I've made this grave mistake before, and it sounds crazy, but sometimes you can overdo, because you think you're doing everything that you think she should have, but then you really haven't even dug into it, and you have to be careful because it could turn into control, where you actually like controlling what she do, like guiding everything she do, and you just making the path for her. So sometimes you got to have that conversation to just know what's up. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be a gentleman. Be a gentleman. But then if you're going overboard, then that's cool, because some people could see what she said, even about, like, well, okay, you don't need to wear nothing too revealing. I get that piece. But then, okay, where does that bleed over into, hey, you can't wear that at all, or you can't do this at all? So you got to be careful with that, because that could turn into control. And that's one thing that I try to watch, is I don't try to control a person, but I try to fill them out. And then sometimes while I'm filling them out, if it don't jive, then we got to deal with that situation in a different manner.
Eric, I really kind of feel like she was doing that to kind of slight other women, not necessarily to say, "Hey, don't nobody else do this for you." This kind of putting them on game, but I feel like she was trying to do it as kind of like an aha moment, based off of her tone, her disposition in the video, how she wrapped it up. Kind of like gauging her body language. It was very much so kind of elitist, like my husband does these things for you and you
Right.
don't have it. That's kind of like the disposition I got off of that. I could have took it a lot more I would have been more receptive to it if I felt like it wasn't generic. If I felt like she wasn't one of those women who walking around wearing her ring going, I'm married, you're not. That's just kind of like the energy she was giving me. Like, my husband does these things for me. And if you don't have a man that does this, then you don't have a good man. It's like I don't really know where she was going with that. Because even with the topic of conversation for clothes, it's I don't have a man that he cares about that. But at the same time, I also am a woman who's raised that there's just some underlying respect. Some things you just don't do. He may not say nothing about me going out in a super tight dress, but at the same time, that's not my daily attire. I wouldn't go to the grocery store in it or the church in it.
Right. All right, Jay Stanza, same question for you. What are some things that you have done or will do in the future, when you finally meet your significant other?
Well, in terms of the video, I think she said a lot of common sense stuff. So I agree, like pumping gas and not picking up strangers. That's just common sense. You always got to be on point. Where I bring the questions up is the leggings part, and I agree with Eric on control. A big word you hear nowadays is submission. A lot of men talking about submission, and men need to understand the difference between submission and control. A lot of men want control, they don't want submission. Submission is when a woman wants to follow your lead, but control is like when you trying to control everything she do. And I'm big on not trying to control a woman. Wear what you want to do, wear what you want. I love you regardless. Men want submission, but they really want control. So it's a difference. I'm not trying to control anybody. The more you try to control a woman, I feel she pulls away from you. And I'm not trying to control any human being. So I agree with Eric.
Yeah, I think Eric made a good point in terms of control, because it's almost like spoiling somebody. Like you do so much for somebody that you start to spoil them and they start to expect it. These things that you were doing willingly and just, as a comfort thing, you turn next thing you know, they're expecting those things, when they really should be like luxuries or bonuses. But what you mentioned about the control, once they start allowing you to have this input on all these things, after a while, you just feel empowered to be like, hey, hold on, what you got on? You know what I mean? Like it definitely happens that way. I've been guilty of that.
I get
And
that.
Whereas,
bro,
Because
and
at
the
the end
other
of the day,
thing,
she's a human being. So I mean,
yeah.
she can make her own choices and decisions. But like I said, a lot of men don't understand the difference between submission and control. When she willingly wants to follow your lead, like, hey, meet me here at this time, blah blah blah. Or the difference, like you like, oh, you can't wear this, you can't go there, you can't hang out with her. That's control. That's a
And, that,
difference.
and the other thing too, bro, real quick, the reason why I mentioned that control thing, because there's another thing that you got to introduce into it is, and I saw somebody in the chat talk about it, that whole quid pro quo thing, which is I did this for you. Now, what do I expect back from you too? You know what I'm saying? Like you really got to watch that. And in the video, she might not have said that as much, but I do see that in relationships. Whereas a brother does things, and I'm just speaking for men because I'm a man, like he'll do all these things, right? And then he'll expect the pat on the back. He'll expect somebody to lift him up and do all those things because maybe there's something going on with his self-esteem or whatever. And then, you know what I'm saying? A woman, certain women who are raised a certain way or have a certain standard about themselves, they think that, hey, this is supposed to rock like this. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you do for a woman. And then when you do that and you're not shouting it from the rooftops or doing something like that young lady was doing, then the brother feels a little off. You know what I'm saying? He now, that control piece comes in, and then that lack of appreciation piece comes in, and that's when it can turn ugly. So, our motives are everything when we do those things for women. And that's why I said that thing about control. Like your motive got to be pure. Like, man, you just want to love on your woman. That's all.